A well-known alchemist is shown as the movie starts are the one who can make or change anything with their magic. Alchemist was walking somewhere late at night when a man approached him and asked him to fight. There was a fight between them, and that man ends the well-known alchemist. A station is shown in the next scene where the main character of the story, Edward, is seen. His brother was also with him who was a robot, and they were going somewhere. There they meet a boy who tells Edward that he is a prince who has come to learn how to be immortal. Immortal means a human who can never die. Later he asks Edward, I am in search of a precious stone as well, do you know where I can find it? Edward doesn't reply after hearing precious stone, because he was also finding it to bring the body of his brother back, as he has lost his body because of an incident, and Edward can bring his body back through that stone. Few goons arrive and start fighting with everyone. The companions of the prince were trying to stop those goons, and they attack Edward and his brother. Later, there was a heavy fight between them while moving upside the train. Then a companion arrives to help Edward, who was a creature like a human. That means he wasn't a human but a creature in human Jetta. The companion of the prince attacks him, but Edward says your attacks will not harm him. Moving inside, they discover one of the goons has failed the brakes of the train. Edward moves to the engine of the train after discovering this, but that goon makes Edward and his brother fall down from the train. Here, Edward lifts up the train track with the help of his powers and magic. As the train was about to crash in the city, its speed gets slow because the train track was in the air. Due to it, it stops in the air. The colonel is shown at the station, and he was also an alchemist. Then he captures all the goons. Later, Edward and his brother go to meet the colonel. The colonel tells them a man has ended our 10 alchemists. We just know there is a mark on his forehead, and that's why we call him a man with a mark. You both are also alchemists, so from now 2 guards will be with you for your protection. But Edward and his brother escape. They were leaving, but then they meet a girl in the town. That girl falls because of Edward, so he takes her somewhere to feed her. The town girl says, I have come from the other city just to learn how to become immortal. Edward becomes furious after hearing this, as the prince in the train also came to learn this. Being enraged with the thought of the prince, Edward starts chasing that girl, but to save her life, that girl hides behind a man wearing the coat. Edward stops while seeing this. Meanwhile, the soldier from the colonel arrives and says the colonel has sent me for your protection. Then the man in the coat removes the cloth from his face, and we discover from the mark on his forehead that he is the marked man. Seeing him, the soldier moves to attack him, but the man with the mark ends him with a single attack. Meanwhile, Edward's brother arrives, and they were running from there, but the man with the mark stops them with his magic and says, I come here from God's side to punish all of you, as the acts you are doing are against the rules of the nature, and then a fight begins between them. Edward's brother loses his hand in this fight, and the man with the mark also breaks the metal hand of Edward. The colonel arrives with the soldiers when the marked man was about to end him. Now the colonel has the firepower, so he tries to attack the marked man while using his power. But he couldn't do it, as he can't make the fireballs because of the rain. The marked man comes to attack him, but the colonel's assistant arrives and saves him. Meanwhile, another alchemist arrives, and there is a fight between him and the marked man. During this, the glasses of the marked man falls, and they discover from his red eyes and brown skin that he belongs to the enemy city. The citizens of the enemy city were against the alchemists. Many soldiers arrive in this field. Seeing them, the man with the mark who has power breaks the land while using his power and then disappears. Then, Edward moves to his brother, who was enraged, and says, you could escape from here, why you didn't leave? Do you remember we promised to each other that we will bring my body back? But if something happened to you, I wouldn't be able to do anything while being alive alone. The colonel tells there is enmity between our city and the other, because the other city believes we should worship and protect the nature means we shouldn't change anything. Many things would have been changed in our city through alchemists, but the enemy city didn't like this, due to which the enmity between these 2 cities increases day by day. Then, one day one of our citizens shoots a kid of the enemy city. It causes the war between these 2 cities, and this war continued for many years, but the circumstances remain the same. Later, our government decide we will end all the citizens of the enemy city through alchemists. It happened the same, and the citizens of the enemy city were ended with the help of our magic. Now the marked man also belongs to that city, that's why he wants to take revenge, while ending all the alchemists. On another hand, the marked man is shown in an underground place, and a dangerous creature like human come to eat him. He was about to eat him, but he runs while making a blast there, and Edward moves to his friend named Wynne. She has made his robotic hand, and now she again makes a new hand for him as he requests her. Edward moves to his mother's grave, and there he meets his father for the first time, but he becomes furious at him as he has left them in his childhood. The marked man becomes injured because of the blast, and the town girl was treating him. Edward arrives, and Wynne's maid tells him there will be a war in our cities, so move to the area near the desert. as you can find weapons there to fight. He reaches the place that the maid told him, but a few people attack him. Meanwhile, an old lady arrives and forbids them to fight. On another side, the Markman's master arrives to meet him and says, "You are terminating alchemists in order to exact revenge, but when will you do so? You have to stop yourself." The Markman becomes furious and clearly refuses to accept this. Then after it, Edward moves to the town with his brother where the Markman's treatment was going on. They start fighting as they see the Markman, and Edward asks him why he has ended the parents of his friend Wynne. Meanwhile, Wynne arrives and hears all this now. She was about to shoot the Markman while lifting up the gun, but Edward stops her, and seeing it, the Markman remembers his brother who once has saved him like this. He doesn't say anything to anyone when he misses his brother and leaves. Edward again starts fighting with the Markman along with his brother. Meanwhile, the human-like creature also arrives while finding the Markman, but the prince holds him while reaching there. Now the colonel's assistant arrives and shoots at that Markman's leg, but the town girl saves him. The prince says to the colonel while showing him the human-like creature, "Maybe the president is a human-like creature, because I've seen the same mark in his eyes as the human-like creature's eye." The president moves to a man and says we can open the path with the colonel's help. Now the town girl is shown who treats the Markman's leg with the help of her magic. The colonel tells Edward an alchemist has ended the companions of the Markman during the war while attacking them, and the Markman died in that attack. Even his hand was also separated. Then his brother revived him through his magic, even he has given him his hand. Edward's brother chases the town girl and discovers where the girl has kept the Markman. Later, Edward and his brother move there and fight with him while capturing him. Meanwhile, the colonel, his assistant, and Wynne arrives, and Wynne discovers the Markman has ended her parents. She moves near him, and the Markman feels now she will end him, but Wynne bandages him on the wound of his arm instead of ending him. The Markman becomes surprised to see this, and also realizes his mistake that he has done wrong to end her parents. Meanwhile, the prince arrives while running, as there was the human-like creature behind him. He was about to end Wynne, but the Markman saves her. Meanwhile, the colonel's companion arrives and forbids the human-like creature to end Edward or his brother. Otherwise, it will be bad. It was useless now because a fight begins between them here. The human-like creature opens his body, attracting everything in his surroundings. Edward, colonel's companion, and the prince attract into his belly. Then the scene in his belly is shown where Edward asks, "Where are we?" On it, the colonel's companion says we are in a magical cave and there is exit while moving forward. The colonel's companion comes into his real getup that was terrible, and this was the final scene of this film.